Super.
12.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody, to our meeting tonight. Appreciate it. Always your continued participation in this important endeavor. Let me quickly go to our agenda and share that. So on the screen, you should be able to see the agenda for tonight's meeting. Let me just make one thing clear relative to our first.
Have you called this meeting to order?
Thank you. I am calling the meeting to order as of 5:32 p.m. And would like to I want to go down and clarify in terms of the public that may be here and may want to comment. Just read that portion of the material so that they're aware. To comment by video conferencing, click on the participants button at the bottom of your screen and select raise your hand button to request.
Oh, sorry, Jim. I think you have to do a roll call first.
I'll finish this and go back to roll call. Okay. I think I can give this comment so they are aware of it. Give them a little time. So when the public comment is being announced, as we will in a couple of minutes, or as speakers are called upon at the start of each agenda item, attendees will then have 2 minutes to click the raise your hand button at that time. Speakers will be called upon in order that they select the raise your hand feature. When called upon, you will be unmuted. Speakers will be allowed up to 1 minute on public comment agenda and items. After that allotted time, you will then be remuted. So just so that people understand, I wanted to make that clear, and we will be going in just a minute after roll call. We'll be going to public comments. So if you are interested in making a public comment, you can raise your hand now. We will call upon you when we get to that item. Just want to take time to get you able to check in now so that we can use this 2 minutes while we do the roll call to find out if anybody's interested in making a public comment. So let me go to the roll call, please, at this time. Helen Burks. Not present. Sol Cantu.
Present.
Thank you, Sol. Eddie Chacon.
Present.
Luis Chacon.
Here.
Don Gosney. Joseph DeWanda. Not present. Joseph Randy.
Here.
Christine Killen Lobos.
Here.
James Lee. Not present. Armin Lee.
Sir, mine. I'm here.
Thank you. Laura Mangles.
Present.
Thank you. Marcus.
Here.
Sorry. Joey Schlemmer.
Good evening.
Deborah Small.
Present.
Andre Soto.
Presente.
Ben Terrialt. Not present. David Tucker. Not present. Tamisha Walker.
Present.
Linda Whitmore.
Present.
BK Williams. Not present. Okay, we'll now go to public comments. We'll give you one more
What
minute.
about approving the minutes?
Oh, thank you.
That's the next item on the agenda, I believe.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll let's just go back to review and adopt, review the agenda and adopt it. I want to make sure that you've had a chance now to review it. It was mailed out to you in advance. Does anybody have any questions about the agenda? Okay, let's move to approval of the minutes for the June 9th, 2021 meeting. Are there any edits or corrections to the June minutes in the packet? do we have, I'd like to package these up so we don't have to go through the vote 3 times. So if there's no objection to these minutes, I'm going to ask for you to review the June 23rd minutes. Is there any concerns or edits on the June 23rd minutes?
Hey, Jim,
Yes,
I'll move to approve all 3 minutes.
thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I was Linda, second. Sorry.
I beat you, Linda.
Oh, you could have it,
I have
Marcus.
an objection.
Okay, go ahead.
I have an objection to the last set of minutes.
And that would be the
The July
7:28
date.
minutes. Thank you. They're on the screen now.
Yes. So when you scroll down to the part about the motion that was made by Andres and then withdrawn, none of the conversation that preceded that action is included in there. Nothing about the discussion, the concerns from the city attorney, none of that. So to me, that's extremely incomplete.
These are action minutes. They are not meant to capture all of the dialogue.
No, but you give discussions for other areas of the minutes where discussion occurred. There was substantial conversation about this, and yet there is no reference to that in the minutes.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as submitted. We'll go through the roll call vote. And let me just pull back up to the agenda. I'm sorry, I got to go back to the agenda. Okay, roll call vote. Helen Burks. Not present.
He actually is present.
Oh, she is present now. Helen Burks, how do you vote on the approval of the minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. Sol Cantu.
Can you hear me?
No, we did not. We can hear you now. Yes.
Okay. I would like Deborah's, I don't understand what this means essentially. Will that conversation be added or not?
Not if it's approved as submitted, no. So that's why,
Okay,
I mean, if you're uncomfortable because it's not there, you probably would want to vote no or abstain.
Okay, got it. So I'll vote no on that.
Thank you. Eddie Chacon,
I abstain.
Louis Cachon.
Point of order.
Yes. Go ahead, Andres.
There is a variety of different people who were present or absent at the various meetings, and thus people who were not present should probably abstain. And because of that, because it is not consistent in terms of who attended and who was not in attendance, it seems out of order to be voting on all 3 sets of minutes as a package. Because I know I personally was not there on June 23rd, and I would want to abstain on that, but I was present at the other meetings and I would want to vote on those.
I'll defer to the attorney on that. My understanding is, even though you were not in attendance at the meeting as a member of the task force, you do have an opportunity to vote on the minutes. I'll defer to the attorney though. Bruce, are you there?
You're muted, Bruce.
Why don't you just take them up one at a time? If we don't have enough people to vote on them that were at we have to get the minutes passed. So, you know, there's something called a rule of necessity where if it's necessary for us to carry on the business of the commission, and there are some people who are not at the meeting but they can read the minutes, in order for us to get them passed, we can vote on them. So I would suggest if there are concerns about a particular meeting's minute that we do them one at a time. And I know it's going to take a few more minutes, but that would be my suggestion.
So I just want to clarify, Bruce, you're indicating that even though you were not in attendance at the meeting for the minutes, if you have read them, you are able to vote on those minutes or not?
I'm suggesting that if we can get them passed without those people who were not there, then we can get them passed. But if it becomes a necessity to get them passed, we should have them vote. If they're not, we don't have enough people for a quorum to vote on all 3 minutes. I suggest we go through them one at a time, see what we get, and then we can decide, we can put them off until we have enough people who are at the meeting to vote on them at a subsequent meeting.
Okay, is the maker of the motion, I mean, we do have a motion on the floor.
I'm in the motion to go one at a time, just to
Thank you.
get this over with.
Thank you, Randy.
I've got to step away for 1 minute. I'll be right back.
Okay, thanks. Okay, let's go back to, if we might make a motion on the two that don't seem to have an issue, that would be the minutes for the June 9th and June 23. I think those were, we did not hear any objection to those minutes. Could we have a motion to approve those two sets of minutes?
How about this, Jim? I will move approval of the June 9th minutes.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second to approve the June 9th minutes?
Second, right here, Eddie Chacon.
Thank you, Eddie. Okay, roll call vote, please. Helen Burke,
Yes.
Sol Cantu,
Yes.
Eddie Chacon,
Yes.
Louis Chacon,
Abstain.
Don Gosney, did we lose Don?
He's in his car
driving.
and can't respond.
I'm sorry, Linda, what did you say?
He said he's in his car and
Okay.
can't respond.
Okay. DeWanda Joseph, Randy Joseph,
Yeah, go ahead.
Kristen Killen Lobos,
Yes.
James Lee, Armand Lee,
Armand, yes.
Laura Mangles,
Yes.
Marcus,
Yes.
Joey Schlemmer,
Abstain?
Deborah Small,
Yes.
Andre Soto,
Yes.
Ben Terrell. Not present, David Tucker. Not present, Tamisha Walker.
Yes.
Thank you, Tamisha. Linda Whitmore,
Yes.
BK Williams. By my count, we have 10 approvals, which is not the majority of the quorum. We hope that Bruce comes back because I don't know what he's going to want us to do.
Well, that means the minutes don't pass. And unless somebody else weighs in affirmatively on a revote, the minutes don't pass.
So it sounds like any of those who might have abstained, if they are willing to change their vote to a yes, we could approve these minutes. Is that right?
Well, those that abstained were people who were absent.
Necessarily.
And I think he said under necessity, if they have abstained, they have a right to be able to vote to get the minutes passed, as I understood.
If they've read them.
Sure.
And it's taken, 2 months to get here, so it doesn't seem like there's an imperative necessity at this point.
So what is,
we move on to the next ones.
well, again, we will bring this back to another meeting and we'll have the same dilemma. I think people who have abstained have a right now at this time, knowing that out of the necessity, if they have not attended, but they've read it, they could vote to approve these minutes. Is any of those who abstained interested in, out of the necessity of getting the minutes approved, as there has been no objection to the minutes as submitted, willing to change their vote to a yes?
I'll change mine to yes.
Thank you.
We were voting on a different date.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
So that would, then the motion would carry with the majority with yes votes. Let's move then to, anybody want to make a motion relative to the June 26th meeting?
June 23rd.
Thank you, June 23, thank you.
I make a motion to approve the June 23rd meeting.
Thank you.
Linda.
Do we have a second?
This is Deborah. I second.
Thank you, Deborah. Okay, we'll go back to the roll call. Helen Burks.
Yes.
Thank you, Helen. Sol Cantu,
Yes.
Eddie Chacon,
Yes.
Louis Chacon,
Please, yeah, yes.
Don Gosney, DeWanda Joseph, Randy Joseph,
Yes.
Kristen Killen Lobos,
Yes.
James Lee, Harmon Lee,
Armand, yes.
thank you, Harmond, Laura Mangles,
There's no H.
Yes.
and Marcus.
His name is Armand Lee. Marcus, yes. Thank you.
Joey
Armand.
Schlemmer,
Yay.
Deborah Small,
Yes.
Andre Soto,
Abstain.
Ben Terrell, not present. David Tucker, not present. Tamisha Walker.
I'm actually present, Jim.
She's present.
Okay, Ben, thank you. Okay, are you, how would you vote on the minutes?
I'll abstain.
Tamisha Walker,
Yes.
Linda Whitmore,
Yes.
BK Williams, not present. Motion passes with 11 affirmative votes. Okay, now we get down to the 7:28 minutes. Do we have a motion to approve these minutes as submitted?
No, I move that the minutes be amended to reflect the conversation that took place around the motion that was made by Andres regarding the extension proposal. And that it be brought back to the task force for approval with the inclusion of that conversation.
Do we have a second to the motion?
I second the motion.
Second.
I second.
I think that was Sol who seconded it first, I think.
right.
Let's go back to the roll call vote.
Jim, can we get a little direction as far as what exactly needs to be included? I mean, aside of the fact that this item of discussion was recommended to come back as an agendized item, I don't know what else needs to be included.
Yeah, let me just comment. From a staff resource standpoint, because we have full video available to the public, we have directed staff to move away from, to move to action minutes so that the action that was taken is what's recorded. Should somebody want to have more information, we have the transcript, we have the full video available. So we were trying to stop. And as Deborah points out, well, in some cases we're including comments, in other cases we aren't. So we've been inconsistent, and I realize that's what causes the concern here. But we have tried from a resource standpoint, because of the availability of what's available today with the technology, we want to simply move to action minutes so that when action is taken, that is recorded. So that's why when we get into a really involved one, staff is not including all of the discussion, I realized that we didn't include much discussion in that particular item, and that's what I think is causing.
You didn't even reference that there was discussion, or that the decision to withdraw the motion came as a result of a request from the city attorney. I think that that's important information that should go into the official minutes for that meeting.
I certainly, from a staff standpoint, understand and agree that we probably should have included that so that it was understood. So we have a motion and a second to go back and add more context to this item.
Jim, I have my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah,
With
just
the
relative
background,
to.
with your background, it's very hard to see your hand. Sorry.
No, just want to say that perhaps Deborah and anyone else who's concerned about capturing the essence of that conversation before the next meeting gets together and reviews and inserts the language that would be appropriate. And let's go ahead and vote on this.
Appreciate the comment, and that would be great if Deborah was inclined to do that. Thank you. Okay, we'll go back to the roll call on the motion to deny these minutes and have them amended. Helen Burke.
Sorry, before we do, Deborah, are you okay with doing that? I just want to make sure we didn't just assume something.
I mean,
In the
to
motion.
be honest, I don't get why I should be doing something that staff should have been doing and putting the minutes together. But that being said, I'm willing to review the tape and look at what should be in there. But I really don't feel like that should be my responsibility. And this isn't the first time that we've had conversations about minutes that were incomplete that were then taken back and brought back more complete. So this is not novel, and I don't see why, you know, because I'm making this request, that means I should have to do the work.
Before I call on Joey, it was just a suggestion, and I left it as a suggestion. If you're inclined to do so, fine. Certainly staff will take the responsibility to amend these. Joey, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was going to make a suggestion just so we can get them approved. And if Deborah's not in agreement with it, she can let me know. But I think all that needs to be added is that after discussion and direction from the city attorney, it was recommended that this item be agendized and placed on the August 25th meeting.
There's a motion that's been seconded that's on the floor, and we were about to have a vote on it.
That is correct. No, I see no other hands. Let's move forward on the roll call vote.
Hold on 1 minute.
Okay.
Let me get rid of the dog, and then I'll have a suggestion that I can take care of this.
Thank you.
That was a friendly amendment. I'm not sure if Deborah's in favor of that or not.
I think what you sounds like you're suggesting that you would like to amend the minutes at this time so that they can be approved. Is that what you're proposing, Joey?
Yeah, and with the language that I'm recommending, that's my friendly amendment.
Okay. The maker of the motion, are you comfortable and support that amendment?
No, because I'd want to actually go back and look at the full context of the conversation to see if that language reflects it.
Okay, thank you. The friendly amendment is not accepted. Go ahead, Bruce.
So did you make a motion to approve the minutes yet?
No, I made the motion to have them go back and be amended, and that motion was seconded.
Okay.
And we were in the middle of voting on it.
Okay.
Did you have anything to add, Bruce, at this time?
Nope. What I was going to add was what Joey suggested, but I agree with Deborah to listen to the language. You could have approved them with the correction, but in order to get the correction properly, the tape should be listened to.
Thank you. We'll now do the roll call vote on disapproving these minutes and have them come back as amended, as suggested for an amendment. Helen Burks.
Yes.
Sol Cantu.
Yes.
Eddie Chacon.
Yeah.
Louis Chacon.
Luis, yup.
Don Gosney. DeWanda Joseph. Randy Joseph.
Yes.
Kristen Killian Lobos.
Yes.
James Lee. Armand Lee.
Armand, yes.
Laura Mangles.
Yes.
Marcus Saint.
Yes.
Joey Schlimmer.
Yes.
Deborah Small.
Yes.
Andre Soto.
Yup.
Ben Terrell.
Yes.
David Tucker. Tamisha Walker.
Yes.
Linda Whitmore.
Yes.
BK Williams. The motion is to deny these minutes is approved. That passes. Thank you. Okay. Once again, we'll move now to public comments. If anybody in the public wants to make a comment at this time, please raise your hand. As I've called for that some time ago, we will give one more minute for anybody in attendance who would like to raise their hand to make a public comment. Please do so at this time. Stephanie, do we have any people who have raised their hand at this point?
Yes, we do. We have Cordell Hindler, who also sent in an email public comment. But I'll go ahead and let Cordell start.
Thank you.
Lupe, can you pull up the timer, please? Okay, Cordell, you have 1 minute to speak. You could start now.
Submitted my comments yesterday, so if you can read them for the minutes, that would be very helpful.
Okay, I will go ahead and read Cordell's emailed comment. Good evening, task force members and city staff. I have a couple of announcements for the record. One, you are invited to the Council of Industries General Meeting on September 15th at noon via Zoom. Presentation by HRM Campus Bay on the Campus Bay Development Plan. And he includes a link to the Zoom meeting. The meeting ID is 814-2596-6506, passcode 713186. 2, there are tickets for the 100th anniversary of Labor Workers Dinner, September 25th, 2021, $150 at the Craneway Pavilion. Sincerely, Cordell. That concludes the emailed public comment from Cordell Hindler.
Are there any other public comments?
That is it.
Okay. Thank you very much. That should take us to back to the agenda. And we are now ready for any staff reports. Any staff members in attendance wanted to make a report? We'll move on then to the presentations, discussion and action items. The first one is to receive a presentation and take action.
Wait, Jim,
Yes,
Jim.
yes.
I'm sorry. I was distracted. Did you do staff reports?
I did, and
Okay,
I didn't
so
get it. Go ahead, Bruce, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I had got a couple of emails today. I know you all received an email from Jim regarding the public records request that we received. I believe when I first got involved in the commission on the task force, that I reminded you that as members of the task force, that if you conduct business of the task force over your private computers or emails or phones, that those communications could be subject to a public records request. We have received a request, so I am asking all of you to forward to me any emails that are responsive to any emails or correspondence or whatever you have that are responsive to that request. That's my report.
Thank you, Bruce. Any questions of Bruce?
We're almost ready for the vote.
Yeah, a quick question, Jim.
Just one quick question. Joey, just 1 minute. Luis has his hand up.
My anniversary. I'm sitting on this thing.
Well, if Joey has a question, we can go ahead first.
Joey, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Joey.
Bruce, do you want these things printed out and submitted as one thing? I mean, if there's multiple emails, you want all these emails forwarded to you? What's the easiest thing for you?
The easiest thing to do is send them electronically.
Okay.
Just to clarify, so that's one at a time?
Well, I mean,
it would be easier if
the city's email system can handle receiving more than one email at a time. If you have the capability of putting them into a group email and sending them to me, that would be easier than receiving 50 individual emails.
Right. That's what I thought. So I think that would be the preference. If you could group them and send them to Bruce, that would be preferred. Okay, now we will move on to, I've got some more hands up.
Yeah, well, my question was, so we received the official public comment request that was made. I was just hoping for a little more clarity. There's 3 parties identified in that request: the task force, the council, and the public. So my understanding of it was that the person who requested it is looking for any communication between those 3 parties.
They're looking for any communication between the members of the city council and the members of the task force to either city council members or task force members or to members of the public. The city doesn't have control over members of the public and what they may have sent you. So I can't ask them for it, but if you receive something from a member of the public and you have access to it, then yes, forward that to me.
Got it. So any communication between members of the task force and the council.
And the task force and other task force members and the task force and members of the public, or members of the public back to the task force.
Is that your interpretation of it? Or because I didn't get that from that email. It seems like they're looking for any interaction between the task force and the council, but not between the task force itself.
No, it's all emails from the task force. This is the 3rd in a series of emails that we've received regarding this, and we have provided him some emails from the council members that I've already reviewed and sent to him. And so what I'm telling you is what the individual is requesting.
Got it. All right, thank you.
I have my hand up as well.
Jim, you want to call on the, okay. Helene?
Yeah, thanks. It's Helen spelled differently.
Okay.
My question was just, should we assume that you already have any that city staff are on? So for instance, I'm thinking of emails from our subcommittee, or do you want us to go ahead and forward it anyways?
I want you to forward everything to me. I don't assume I have anything.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know who was next. Ben?
I think you kind of answered it, Bruce. Same thing for if it's on the city server already. It's not something you're doing like a keyword search for? Or
yeah, I've done a keyword search and sent out what I got back and got a response that you didn't send me everything. So, And I forgot to ask you guys when we initially got the request.
Okay, so even if it's on the city server,
Yeah,
send it.
just send
everything
it to
you.
me anyway.
Okay.
Deborah Small, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. So I don't understand why we should spend time, of which we have limited, to send information that's already been captured in the drive that was created and shared with city staff and others. So unless there's some compelling reason why I should devote hours of searching my email to find copies of things that I've already sent or copied to city staff, I don't see any reason why I should do that.
Well, ma'am, because we're required under the Public Records Act to go through everything to make sure that we've covered all things. So
then once you've gone through them and captured all the ones that I've sent to staff and you think that there's something missing, then you can come and ask me. But I'm not committing to spend hours of my time as a volunteer on this, to go through information, most of which has already been submitted to the city, just because someone wants to hope that there might be something else. That I'm not willing to do. And I have yet to hear any compelling reason why we should do that. I think it's on the city, since the request was made to the city, to first capture the information that you already have. We've put our notes, our subcommittee meeting notes, our agendas, etc., in a drive that's been shared with city staff from the very beginning. My other issue has to do with the public request asked for information from June 1st, 2020. The task force didn't come into existence until October.
and that's fine. So we don't have information that goes back to June 1st, 2020, and that's what they'll be told. However, the Public Records Act does require it. It's state law, so it has to be done. As a member of the task force, you are required to provide that information to the city so that we can respond as the city is legally required to do.
I'd like to see a legal memo saying that in writing. Thank you.
Okay, before I call the next speakers, remember, guys, we have some work to do tonight, so I'm not sure we want to get really bogged down on this one, but Don Gosney, your hand is up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Don.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I finally got to my destination. I appreciate that. We all signed up to be a part of a Brown Act controlled committee. And so the law applies to all of us. So we don't have much choice. If somebody asks for what is considered public information, we have to provide that information. We don't have any choice on this. It's not a matter of the city or us. We have to provide it. That's what the Brown Act says. We cannot keep anything secret because the city doesn't know what we may have sent back and forth. Only we do. Anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. Thanks.
Sol Cantu, did you want to make the comment?
I actually wanted to see if there was a way that we could make this more efficient and effective. All of our task force meetings have been CC'd. We have CC'd city staff. Jim has all of our links, and Stephanie has asked us, if there's any agenda items or anything like that. And so could it be to save us time that Jim and Stephanie and any other staff, supply that first? Because it just seems like there's going to be a whole bunch of duplicates of a lot of Zoom links and scheduling and agendas, that it seems like it could be directly from Jim Nantel, who has been our city staff point person, to forward all task force official documents. Could that work, Mr. City Attorney?
Unfortunately not. I need you guys' emails. The Public Records Act is exactly that. It's designed for legislative bodies, or commissions, formal commissions of the legislative body, to provide information to the public that is the subject of public meetings. So we need, I can't skate around the Public Records Act.
No, I don't want to. I was just trying to make it more efficient.
The penalties for
I'll send you everything.
The penalties for not providing the information that requests are onerous, including that if the provider takes the city to court and wins, then we have to pay their fees. So attorney's fees. So the city has an obligation to make sure that we do everything within our power to get all of the records that may be responsive to the request.
So is Jim included in this request as well? Will he be handing over records, and Stephanie as well?
Everybody who is part of the request will be handing over records.
Are they part of the request?
Yes, I've got emails from staff already.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Okay, I think if you'd put your hands down, for those of you who have made your comments. Joey, are you still have another comment on this matter?
Yes. So Bruce, just so I'm clear, you're asking for any and all communications, including emails or text messages between the task force and the city council, city staff, and members of the public. Is that correct?
Yes, and and in addition, communications between the task force members. So for instance, if you sent an email to Ben, or Ben sent an email to Kristen, that I would want those too.
Correct. Thank you.
I mean, I hear people, saying about the emails. Yeah, it is a lot of work. I'm the one who has to review them. I get requests and have to go through 3,000 emails, but it's my obligation under the law, so I have to do it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but refusing to cooperate with this request is technically contempt of court, is it not?
No, it's not. But like I said, the obligations of the city to respond to them have serious penalties if we're taken to court and we don't, and we lose.
Okay, thank you.
Tamisha?
Just to clarify previous questions that I've had. So if I send Ben an email and it has nothing to do with this task force, you don't want that.
Yes, that's correct, ma'am. I only want emails that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the task force. If you sent Ben an
And
email
so
those
subcommittees, any emails that came from Jim or anybody to communicate around agendas, send all of that. So subcommittees, all staff communications, in addition to any text messages between members that might have been related to this task force, and communications with the community. So if you're on an email listserv and you get emails from the community, you want those emails forwarded over too, even though the community that's sending the emails is on the task force and aren't a part of this process, you want those too.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay, Helen, you have another comment?
I think Tamisha asked a similar question that I was going to ask, as far as just like where the line was, as far as like emails that have to do with the business of the task force, or for instance, things like reminder, we have a meeting tonight. So I've got the line now. I'm good.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I'll move to our first agenda item. And back to our agenda. This is a discussion relative to the extension of the task force and a recommendation to City Council to do so. Are any members of the task force want to make a presentation on this item?
Yes, I believe there's a PowerPoint.
And if you, I mean, we could go, we do have a copy of it here. Reduce this a little bit. In the agenda packet, but I wondered if Sol, you or somebody else wanted to use your own PowerPoint rather than go through these slides. Let me know what your preference is.
I can walk folks through the presentation. If that's cool, Jim. This is Luis talking.
Yes. Do you want me to just scroll through this, or would you want to share the screen?
If you could scroll through it, that'd be cool. Because all I have is a PDF copy of it, so I think we'll be on the same boat.
Gotcha. So here is the first slide relative to the timeline of the task force.
Perfect. So, just to walk folks through what we're looking at here. This presentation is pretty self-explanatory. It's more of a recap, like Jim just read in the first slide. It's a timeline sort of summary of the direction or the origins and the direction that the task force has taken. So if we think back to last June of 2020, right, obviously that's right around the time that the initial ideas of the task force starting to come to light. Not necessarily a task force yet, but just exploring, just possibilities for the city and the community to take what became a reimagined or re-envisioned approach to policing. So that's the quote that we see here from a agenda report from that June meeting. That same June meeting, there was a vote held, and you can see how the vote carried out on the right. The agenda item, as you can read, it says direct staff to prepare a plan to transition from Richmond's current community policing model to one conducive to the reduced police force, and then to return to council with a preferred model or policing model and a plan for implementation by the end of fiscal year 2021. And that was put forward by council members Myrick and Johnson. And then obviously that passed. You can see how the vote carried there on the right. Moving forward, in terms of September 15th, which is the September 15th, 2020 City Council meeting, there was another agenda item, so item K2, to receive an update on the process and just the status of the recommendations for the task force, and just for the city council to provide some feedback. So that is something that took place on the 15th of last year, if I'm reading that correctly. And if we move forward with, sorry, I lost my place here. Yeah, so on October 6th, there was, per the September 15th meeting, based on that, the council decided, per the mayor's recommendation, to nominate 3 folks, for each council member to nominate 3 folks to the task force. And that's what ended up happening. You can see on the next slide, the appointments. You can find your name there, or you may find the name of the person who you replaced if you joined us later on beyond October 6th. And the names for which council member nominated which task force member is there for everybody. And we can go to the next one. On October 6th, those nominations were approved. You can see the vote there. And one of the things that, as the conversation or the discussion around extension of the task force has come up, and even implementation of the various programs and the creation of the various programs, different subcommittees have looked at other cities and other models. just for a little guidance and a little reference, what we have here, and we can send this out later, is a comparison between Berkeley, Oakland, Austin, Texas, and then the Richmond task force is left for us to fill in. But we can see, just in terms of member selection, community representatives, and working group styles, there's a comparison there. For our purposes, and I guess for the sake of time, if we can go to the next one, we can see a comparison of the duration of the task force. So if we want to keep in line just with what other communities are doing, not necessarily to follow their lead, but just in, for the sake of making sure that we offer our community members a robust and strong implementation of these programs. If we look at what, for example, Berkeley and Oakland are doing, they have something in place that allows for a 2 to 3 year timeline for the task force to exist, and to allow it for doing that implementation work, and for making sure that the recommendations are tracked and implemented accordingly. But obviously for us, same as I'm sure is the case for other task forces, is making sure that the recommendations fulfill the vision that we laid out. And that's part of that monitoring process, right? To make sure that each of the programs is upholding what we envisioned. So having said that, what we're hoping to do, or the hope is that tonight we take action on proposing to extend the task force for an additional 3 years. And then that recommendation or proposal would then go to the city council. And I will leave it at that and leave it open for any folks who would like to add on to that, in case I might have missed anything.
Thank you, Eddie.
That was Luis, but I think Marisol and
Was
Ben
that Jim?
have their hands up.
Sol, you have a comment?
Yes, so I move to recommend that the city council extend the Reimagining Public Safety Community Task Force as currently constituted until the end of fiscal year 2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I got some discussion.
Ben, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I have a question. Who created this? Which subcommittee created this thing?
It started with the budget subcommittee. They did bring it up at the last meeting, and then as was discussed earlier, the city attorney said it was not adequately agendized, and so it was brought back to this meeting.
Okay. So this came from the budget subcommittee?
Initially, yes.
Oh.
Don Gosney, do you have a question?
Well, comment, not a question. I have a few concerns about this. Right now, technically, we have a task force of 20 people, I believe, but for all intents and purposes, that's really only 8 people that are taking action and speaking on our behalf. You know, it's the people on that implementation committee, because that's the only thing that's really left to do. So we don't have a task force that is taking action. It's those 8 people that are speaking on our behalf, and not necessarily with our permission. I mean, they may be speaking before they bring something before our committee. So I have trouble with that kind of thing. This is really an 8-person task force at this point. I've also got a concern that come November of next year, there's going to be an election. We have no idea how it's going to come out, but if we have a change on this council, they may have a different idea about who should be on this task force. And so they, instead of extending it by 3 years, you might just want to extend it to the time that the new council is sworn in. Thank you.
Andres.
Yeah, thank you. I'm in support of this motion, and specifically for the reason that Don just identified, that, you know, there will be an election, but the work of this task force and the oversight the implementation, additional ideas, programs that may come to light that should be recommended is something that should be continued at least through the period of the next election and the sitting of the next city council. It is true we have no idea how that council will be constituted and their attitudes towards the task force. But I'm of the opinion that this is a commitment for a long-term change, a paradigm shift in the way policing is done in Richmond. And if this is merely a recommendation to take it forward to the city council. It's up to the city council to make that decision. But I think those that feel the work of this group is yet unfinished would be those kind of members who would probably support the extension of this. And to go from a year to year or once every 2 years does not provide a lot of continuity or stability. Thank you.
Thank you, Andres. Joey Schlemmer.
Yeah, so this was discussed at the implementation meeting recently. And I brought up some concerns about a fiscal impact. Namely, a professional meeting facilitator was discussed and maybe some analyst positions. If that's still the direction of the folks that put this presentation together, I think that should be clarified. There was also a discussion, and I may be wrong, about spending up to $100,000 on those positions. If that's incorrect, then I'd like to have that clarified. But if there is going to be paid positions added to assist the task force with the work that needs to be done, then staff, Jim and you, need to know that when a staff report is prepared for the city council, so that a fiscal impact or a potential fiscal impact can be included in the staff report for city council's advisement.
Thank you, Joy. Just from a point of clarification, at this time, the agenda is, or the motion is specific to extending the life of the task force for another 3 years. It does not include anything in the cost right now. There may be another motion to follow this one to address it, but right now that's not addressed in this motion. Helen?
Yeah, I was just going to speak to the fact that I do not think the work of the subcommittees is over. I know that there has been less meetings lately, but I know, for instance, the accountability subgroup, we're bringing forward something tonight. And I don't think that that's the end of the conversation. So that was just something I wanted to raise. I think if what we need to have is a conversation, maybe in each of those subcommittees, about what the next step is, because I think even if a piece was brought forward, I mean, the topics of these subcommittees are broad, right? And the work is deep. And so I think that there's quite a bit more to do separate from the implementation group. So with that, I also just was going to speak to that. I think there's a responsibility as well when you put forward any kind of change or impact in this way, to have a body that has continuous reflection on it, what is the impact that's going on, and just the role as well with the community and the interface, I think is important. So that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy Joseph?
Yeah, for me, I wanted to just put up not only because I think when public safety is large, and it doesn't just go through just policing, it goes to a lot of other things too. And I still think there's work to go from that. And I think we focused on one thing mainly, but I think there's more conversations that need to be had in other areas. Also, my understanding, if this committee ends, if this task force ends at the end of September, doesn't the implementation team ends too? Because they're part of the task force, that would also end. So that would be something that would not be helpful to getting these programs on track that the city council approved of. So there's something to be approved to move forward to do the work. Because I know I'm still working behind the scenes to try to figure out other things to go forward, to bring forward to my subcommittees and working behind the scenes to have these conversations. And I think that to just prematurely cut it off without first, I think, because like I said, public safety is an ongoing issue. It's not something that happens in 1 year and it doesn't happen again. It's many different areas. I think we focus on one area, but there's 80 areas outside of that as well that needs to be a focus on, that needs to be taken care of. And I think that work still needs to be done. And regardless if it's election, regardless of who's coming in, it doesn't matter. The job of public safety still needs to go forward regardless who's in office. If they get in the office and decide to cut it off and say this is not fine, then we'll deal with that when that bridge crosses. But I don't think that's a reason to cut something off, because there's still work to be done, especially with the implementation team, if we just let this in at the end of September.
Thank you, Randy. Ben, carry on.
Yeah, I'd like to throw a substantive motion. Basically, to work on, to move forward for another year, but have it do some type of an altering to this arrangement. Maybe the number of people, or maybe something with the implementation team connected to the CPRC. I think that might be a better way to go about it, or maybe a more efficient way. So I'd offer that instead of just continuing this as is at the same position. Maybe something a little bit more efficient. So.
Can Ben repeat what he said? Because I did hear him not. I think he was talking a little low. I just wanted not to talk what he said. I just didn't hear what he said. That's all.
I was saying, Randy, that it might be better to have to reformat the task force, or maybe something just specifically with the implementation team in connection to the CPRC, instead of just asking for this body to go forward in a giant, large fashion. It might be better to maybe change up the way this thing is organized and the structure. And I would just submit that as an alternative for efficiency's sake. Probably won't pass, but I'd offer that. I think it might be a better way to go forward.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Ben. Laura Mangels.
Thank you. Yes, I think my comment is echoing points already been made by Helen and by Randy regarding the importance of having the continuation of this task force that's separate from the implementation task force. And I'll just add that from my personal point of view, as someone who has really thought a lot about public safety, I haven't had a chance personally to share all my ideas yet with my subgroup. We just haven't been able to get through everything yet. So I would be quite disappointed if we were to not conclude that work in our subgroup. I think that work does need to be continued outside of implementation, because it needs to be workshopped and fine-tuned and proposed first before it can be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. Deborah Small.
So I just want to say that almost every city that's engaged in this process of rethinking their approach to public safety, of trying to do structural police reform, have not tried to do it within a year or a fiscal year. The comparison chart only reflected cities that actually had task forces that were called Reimagine Public Safety. But there are a number of cities, dozens of cities around the country that are engaged in this process of thinking seriously about how do you redefine public safety, how do you allocate resources consistent with values and preferred outcomes. And none of them have abbreviated the process and expected it to take place within a year. And so I think it's important that if Richmond is serious about having a comprehensive approach to how we rethink and implement programs consistent with the new vision of public safety, that it be given an adequate amount of time to do so. And I would point out that one of the tenets that we kind of started this process from was recognizing that it's been several decades of bad policy that have led us to this point and have created the kind of structural issues that this task force was designed to address. And so to think that you can repair and reform and significantly shift issues that have been festering for decades in a year, it does a disservice, both to the goals of what we want for the city and for the hard work that the people here have put in. We haven't done this just because we wanted to get a new budget passed. We've done it because we have a vision for the city and what it could be and how it could better serve its citizens than what we currently have. And that's not to say that the city is in a horrible condition, because that's not what we believe. But the whole premise is that we can do things better, that we can do them more efficiently. We can do them from a more humanistic perspective. And so I would really hope that the same issues and motivations and passion that brought people to be here in the first place would have them want to continue the work.
Thank you, Deborah. Again, I encourage folks. I think we've done a good job of sharing perspectives. I would like to get to the roll call as soon as possible. But Andres, do you want to add a comment here?
Yeah, I just want to reflect on Ben's comments. And one is that, you know, the implementation group is a discrete group working on implementation now that there's been some recommendations move forward. And so that's a separate part of the work, different than this task force. And I think it's completely inappropriate to suggest the CPRC have a role, since they have a very discrete task, and that is reviewing investigations of specific police abuses. And that's their job. It's not weighing in on these broader questions. And therefore, I think it's completely inappropriate to go in that direction. And so I just want to reflect on that and say that I think we should move forward with the vote on this motion as it's been postulated. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen, did you want to make a comment before we vote?
Yeah, just quickly, I feel listening to you all, and I'm just thinking about a lot of things that we discussed this year, you know, in these meetings since October, around things that we knew that we really wanted to work on together and move forward on some other proposals. And I'm specifically thinking around addressing our youth population, our unhoused youth, our youth in crisis with substance use. You know, I remember I went to visit the youth village in Oakland. I really was hoping we could, you know, have something like that here in Richmond. And a lot of other things that cities have tried. We didn't really get to further discuss the idea of universal income program and many other things that, you know, I felt like this first year, these four were really important. We decided these were the ones that we wanted to, you know, be our first round, you know, and there were a lot of other things. That was a conservative approach, in my opinion, to move forward on these four programs. They're really wonderful. It makes sense they were the first ones, but I don't feel like we're done, not in the least.
Call for the question.
Thank you. Joey, I'm going to ask you to, since you have commented before, I'm going to go forward and call and do the roll call on this motion. Helen Burks.
Yes.
Sol Cantu.
For the record, Marisol Cantu votes yes.
I'm sorry, I thought you told me that Sol was unappropriate.
Yes, but legally, I want to make sure my name is Marisol.
Okay, thank you, sorry. Eddie Chacon.
Yes.
Luis Chacon.
Yes.
Don Gosney.
No.
DeWanda Joseph's not here. Randy Joseph.
Yes.
Kristen Louis, Killian Lobos.
Yes.
James Lee. Armand Lee.
Armand, yes.
Alora Mangles.
Yes.
Marcus Jingsang.
Yes.
Joey Schlimmer.
I'm gonna abstain.
Deborah Small.
Yes.
Andre Soto,
Simon, yes.
and Ben Terrell,
Abstain.
and David Tucker, not present. Tamisha Walker,
Aye.
Linda Whitmore,
Abstain.
and BK Williams. Not present. Thank you. The motion passes. I'd like to thank Linda Whitmore for being here on her 19th wedding anniversary. And sticking
Congrats,
with us.
Linda.
Woo. Congratulations. I think you're probably at a party, and if you need to what do I want to say? If you need to leave, please feel free to do so. Okay.
Thank you. I
We could all,
appreciate it.
could all only be so lucky, Linda. We could all only be-
I'll be thinking about you guys. Bye-bye.
Linda, take your time.
Congratulations. Many,
Thank
many
you.
more.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other discussion or motions to be made relative to this item? Hearing none, we'll move on to the second item here under presentations, and that is accountability as a safety subcommittee recommendation. And Randy, I believe you have prepared a PowerPoint. I'd be happy to stop sharing if you wanted to share and go through that PowerPoint.
Okie dokie. PowerPoint.
Hey, sorry, were we supposed to do public comment for the previous item?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Lupe. Okay, we need to see if there's any public comments. Has anybody raised their hand to make a public comment at this time? Sounds like we don't have anybody yet. We'll give another minute for people to raise their hand should they want to make a public comment. Okay, we'll come back if anybody does raise their hand. So, Randy, if you're able to find that presentation, be happy.
Ready to go whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Have we given Randy the opportunity to be able to share his screen?
They have, and I just shared it.
Super, thank you. Go ahead, Randy.
In your face. All right, let me figure out how to do this though.
Slideshow.
Play from start. There we go. All right. All right. This is one of our recommendations. We brought this, I want to say, what, 3 or 4 months ago, and they wanted to have a conversation about budget and how much stuff would cost, and we're just bringing back the recommendation back. So this is the same presentation as before, but with an added slide. But so we wanted to acknowledge that communities of color have been devastated by state-sanctioned violence. All goals will focus on ensuring best practices and promoting anti-racism and decreasing use of force in communities of colors that have been historically impacted by police violence. So this is the training of police officers. I think this was approved, so I don't think we have to go through this one. The improvement of the 911 communication system was the one that we needed to bring back to have a conversation about. We talked about the communication center again as a 24/7, 365 operation, and it's a pivotal part of serving police in crisis. Our recommendation was to increase the dispatchers to 20, that the Richmond Police Department emphasize and prioritize the hiring and filling these positions. It is to try to increase the salary allotment to compete with other dispatcher salaries in the Bay Area. Have all dispatchers receive cultural competency training similar to police officers. Dispatch upgrade technology to meet the needs and demands of the city, and then move the dispatch from police department to its own department. As of current staffing level was 10 dispatchers at the time, with 2 was in training for a total of 12, 1 manager and 2 supervisors. There were 3 vacant dispatch positions and 1 frozen positions. And then these were all the calls from 2018 to 2019. And then we talked about we needing to separate police emergency and non-emergency police response calls, ensure that dispatch operators have cultural competency training on par with police officers. So this was the history of the dispatch. So back in 2006, 2007, there was 28, there were authorized 28 dispatchers, 4 supervisors and 1 managers. 2010, 2011, they went down to 24. Then 23, 2011, 2012, they took 2 call and they added 2 call taker positions. Then 2019, 2020, they were authorized for 16 dispatchers, 4 supervisors, 1 manager, and 1 call taker, and then 1 dispatch position was frozen. And then currently there's only 10, there were 10 dispatchers employed by the city of Richmond. We estimate approximately $300,000 for the 4 new dispatchers to raising the minimum allowed dispatchers to 20. And then we forwarded to budget subgroup to figure out exact numbers. One of the main issues that we have when we're trying to hire to even get to the minimum of 16 is that it's not really accurate in terms of how much it costs compared to other cities like Oakland, Sarah Fell, Walnut Creek. And not only it's not based on how much money they make, it's not based on how much work they get as well. So people are taking less to go to other places because the less of the workload and the less of the stress. So we wanted to highlight those 2 things as well. And another thing that's not included in the presentation that I wanted to add was the fact that with dispatches, it's a very critical aspect of the job, because the longer they take to answer the phones, and the longer they take to figure out what's something going wrong, the longer it could take to somebody that their life is on the line. And we need adequate dispatching in this city to make sure that we save people's lives, we get adequate services that are needed, and to make sure that there's proper training to make sure that these people can do these jobs so other people can go out and be first responders and save people's lives, and make sure that people are being felt that they feel safe in the city. And that was one of the things that we highlighted. There's been any instances where if a dispatch was taken care of and it was 1 minute earlier, that person would have survived. So we wanted to bring this to the forefront to make sure that this was something, one of the things that we took care of, to make sure that this is one of the things that we wanted to bring forward and make sure that it was adequately staffed and adequately move forward. And then I added thing to move it to its own department so it can have its own supervisions that can be looked over and properly managed and have the right amount of training. That's all I have.
Thank you, Randy. As you'll notice on the agenda, we have indicated that the subcommittee would make their presentation, and the next is we would have questions and comments to and from staff. The reason I have broken out the order of discussion on this item in the fashion that I have is I'd like to make sure if staff has any questions or concerns relative to the recommendation, that they can raise them now rather than have them raised at a later point where they end up in the staff report and the committee has not had a chance to hear them and maybe help respond to those questions. And so, Randy, if you could go back to the that key slide that's at goal number 5. I'm trying to make it clear for the group is what there's a much information in the PowerPoint presentation that shows it gives you the reasons why these recommendations are being made. And so I want to distinguish between the support material and the specific recommendation that we would take to the city council relative to this item. And I think it's captured in this slide, I believe, but I wanted to make sure that the committee thinks, yes, this is exactly what they were asking for this body to take action on tonight.
This is it right here. These are the 6 things that are part of the recommendations.
Thanks. So I think that's important for them.
And I want to make sure the rest of the people in my subcommittee to make sure that these are the 6 that we agreed on. I don't want it.
I want to make sure they agree. Sure. Anybody from the other subcommittee that wanted to amplify, or you feel maybe there's something not included in this specific slide that would be, obviously we can share the backup information, but I want to be able to make it clear to the city council, here is the recommendation, and then here's the backup information that supports these recommendations. Anybody on the subcommittee have any questions or concerns about how Randy and I have articulated it? Joey Slimmer, you have your hand up?
Yeah, Randy, you did a great job in presenting it. I just wanted to make sure that the task force knows that the dispatch center, the Richmond Dispatch Center, is not just for police services, it's for medical and fire as well. So
That is correct.
when 911 rings, you're not being transferred to another dispatch center for medical services or fire. And like Randy said, time is of the essence. So the more folks that you can have in a seat answering the phone, the quicker the response, and lives can be saved.
Thank you. Thank you. And Andres, I apologize again that the background, I missed it, but you were eating, so maybe you appreciate a little more time. Go ahead. Do you have a comment?
Well, I was going to wait and defer until the other members of the subcommittee spoke, and then please put me in the top of the
Sure.
queue.
Okay. Thanks. Ben, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, no, Randy did a good job. It's a very serious situation. The dispatch center is woefully understaffed. They're woefully understaffed right now, and it's just unfortunate because a city like Richmond the residents should not suffer because of a lack of staffing. And other cities in our county and surrounding communities within the Bay Area have a far higher ratio than we do, and they get better service. And it's just unacceptable that we don't have that level of service. It's not just for police, like Schlemmer said, it's for a host of other services. And probably in the future, it'll be tied into other additional services that will be planned out and have to go with mental health as well. It's very important and it's vital, and it's woefully underserved, which means our city is woefully underserved.
Michelle Milan?
Yeah, Jim, I think my question was answered. So thank you for doing this, and thank you, Randy. The only question I had was, did staff get a chance to see the final version from the comm center? And it sounds like they did. So my question was answered.
Okay, any other questions from or to staff at this time? I'd like to move to those questions. Does anybody have any comments or question from staff relative to these recommendations on the screen? Could I just ask one question as a staff member? The moving police department to its own, the dispatch to its own department. Can you talk more about what's the value of the expense to add another department head and all of that? What's the value of moving it away from the police department?
So part of the value of that is that, like what we said before, it's not just a police call center. It's also for medical and fire, and it's also going to be like further down the road, a mental health as well. And so having something pulled out of that and having it more in charge of its own space, because it's in its own entity, because so many people are involved in it, to have something overseeing that as a whole, as a separate department, made more sense than having one department relying on it, to where everybody has a say in something, and picking somebody who can talk to all of the moving parts that control the dispatching center, so we can have one head instead of having a police officer or whoever is in charge of it, but having it to where there's communication from all the pieces that need to be put together. And that was the idea about it, to taking it out of that control.
Okay, I think that Michelle, your hand, I'm sorry, Andre, did you want to speak now, or you want to let the others speak still?
Well,
Jim,
if you're still taking if you're still taking feedback from staff, I can wait until the general comments from task force members.
Thank you, Andres.
Jim, can I just add to Randy's last comments?
Yes,
I'm part of this subcommittee.
He's part of our subcommittee. Go ahead. You're part of this presentation too, Joey. Go ahead.
So I think one of the ideas is, since the communication center has a manager, the manager would quite possibly maybe report directly to one of the assistant city managers as a chain of command, so to speak, and that way it would be taken away from the chief, if that's the direction that we go.
Okay, I think I'm not hearing other comments from staff at this time. Let's go to any questions or comments from members of the task force. And let's see, Andres, would you go ahead?
Yeah, sure. I wanted to say that I appreciate the recommendation that all dispatchers receive cultural competency training similar police officers. Similar is a little vague. Either it's the same or it's not. And I also am more concerned about linguistic competence, not cultural competence, because this is the front line of receiving calls from the public. And, you know, Richmond, the general Richmond area is nearly half Latino. Not all speak Spanish, but a significant number of them, Spanish is their primary language. We have a significant Sikh community here whose primary language is Punjabi, and an emerging Chinese community that is primarily Mandarin speakers. So I think, you know, at least those three languages need to be, and particularly Spanish, need to be present 24/7. And cultural competency is simply not enough. Thank you.
All right, so to directly answer Andre's thing, I think when we put in cultural competency, some of that was also including language as well. If you want language to specifically pull out language, we can. But the idea around cultural competency was also, we thought that had also include, to me, that also included language. And
it says cultural competency training, and
So
that's all it says.
Yeah, but
It
like
doesn't
I
speak
thought
to the linguistic competency.
Yeah, so like I said before, I thought that included it, but we can separate it to include that as well.
And I'll make a couple of comments on that. If Andres, if you'd like to add a bullet point that that there's an emphasis on like bullet point number 2, emphasizing and prioritizing the hiring and filling of dispatch positions with an additional emphasis on bilingual applicants. I mean, I have no problem with that. I will say, to your concern, that aside of some, not all, but some of the dispatchers that do speak a second language, all of the dispatchers have access to a language hotline when they come into contact with a variety of literally 20 or so different languages that they can access a translator. And that's a 24/7 service that they have access to.
Luis, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, well, I was gonna mention a similar thing to Andres, but to add, well, question I have actually, sorry, is this communication center, does it only serve the city of Richmond?
Also serves what, El Cerrito?
Correct, El Cerrito as well.
El Cerrito pays us to serve as their dispatch center as well.
So this increase in dispatchers would also serve El Cerrito?
Theoretically, yes.
Okay. I mean, it all sounds great. I'm just wondering how much we can hold, them to their share. If the number of dispatchers is increasing, I would hope they take some part of that cost. So that's just, sorry, go ahead.
No, so part of their contract, obviously that would have to increase. I mean, that the council votes on that contract, comes back every couple of years or whatever it is it's up for. So I think that's just something that obviously they'd have to be mindful of, or the implementation committee would have to be mindful of. But yeah, I mean, they don't just get it for free.
Yeah,
they pay a price for sure, and that comes part and parcel.
Got it. And then just the last thing, I think similar to the, I guess, language line. I know Richmond is a sanctuary city, so I would like to make sure the folks hired as dispatchers are well versed in that policy in case any questions come up during any calls, and I'll leave it at that.
Marisol Cantu.
Hi, thank you. So I also have some questions around the language of this recommendation before it goes up to City Council. So one clarifying thing is the dispatchers, I think they're part of SEIU 1021. Can somebody confirm that?
SEIU does the dispatcher 1, 2, and 3, and supervisors are local 21, IFPTE.
Perfect. Have they been included, labor been included in this conversation?
Probably not.
What about no?
Okay. The next question is the RPD emphasis. If you're saying that you're supposed to be move dispatch from the police department to its own department, then why is RPD emphasizing and prioritizing hiring of these? That's confusing to me because it would be a
as of
separate.
now, yeah, because if they're not moving it as of right now, it is under RPD, and we're not expecting it to be moved right away, but we felt that the need of dispatchers is an immediate need, and if it's still under RPD, under the RPD, hey, we wanted them to make sure that that they work on making sure that these positions get filled because they're woefully understaffed. So more so thinking that the movement won't happen. It's probably till next fiscal year, but we don't want to wait to hire for dispatchers until the next fiscal year. We wanted that done post haste. They'll have them emphasize and prioritize that right now is what was important.
Marisol, that the whole thing is done at the peer review of the city manager. But yeah, right now, I mean, RPD is in charge of hiring people, and the point is to give them the emphasis that, hey, this is important, whether it's to the point of hiring people, the number of, or what their backgrounds are, and do they have the training, and do they have the language skills as well. Yeah.
And so that means Chief Bisa French would be the one in charge of that hiring. Has she been reached out and already been told about this priority without having it to go to city council?
Yes.
Yeah, she has.
Okay, but you still feel the need that your city council needs to still direct her.
Correct. Just to make sure that it was a priority, and make sure that emphasizes this was a priority.
This just puts it on the record, Marisol. I mean, it's not, I don't think she needs to be told. I think she's very well aware of the problem in the hiring and then the issues behind the hiring. But this is just, I think, better to put it on the record so that it's there for anyone in the future to see and know this is a priority.
Right. It's not to attack the chief at all. It's not to attack the chief either. Like I said, this is just to make sure that, hey, this super gets emphasized, and that to make it clear, this is not an attack on her. Talking to her, when I talked to her about this, she's well aware of this, and she wants this done as well.
So I'll make a couple of recommendations to slightly modify the bullet points to maybe make it a little bit more palatable to some folks. So, technically speaking, all hiring within the city is done through City Human Resources Department. That's where it all starts, through Human Resources. So under bullet point number 1, I may suggest that we change that to that the city authorize the increase to the allotment of dispatchers to 20. And under bullet point number 2, that the city of Richmond emphasize and prioritize the hiring and filling of these positions with an additional emphasis on bilingual applicants.
Is that a motion, Joey?
I'm just, it can be if it needs to be. I'm trying to address some of the concerns that have been raised as they come along, specifically Andres and Marisol.
No, I'm asking because I agree with that. I agree with going forward with the recommendation with the changes that you just made.
Articulated, okay. And we will need to make a motion at some point, and that motion that may be made may include those modifications, or of course, it may include other ones as well. But before we go there, can we go to Marisol, were you finished with your comments?
I was not. So a couple more here, a couple more questions. Increased salary allotment. I would, again, very vague. I would love to see a robust comparison analysis sent to city council to make the case that other dispatchers are being paid and being retained, and that we are undervaluing our dispatchers. And so has that work and research and comparison?
Marisol, it has been, if I may, the city has just completed a class and compensation study, and all the labor unions, including SEIU, are aware of it. They will be rolling that out in October. So that work has already been bought and paid for by the city. And I would be willing to bet a paycheck that our dispatchers are undervalued. Again, that bar graph is just a bar graph. It's not the most in-depth representation, but the class and compensation study will be out and available to the public, I believe, in October, and that will definitely show that.
And then the follow up on Ben's comment, I can send you the numbers that I had when I did the bar graph. I just did a bar graph because I wanted something pretty on this paper instead of words, but I can send exact numbers as an amendment to this to show different salaries and talk about the research that I did behind this to show that Richmond is not only not pacing the rest of the Bay Area. Yeah,
very good.
That too.
I don't have the specific numbers in front of me. I can tell you that if we're not the busiest, we're probably in the top 3 of the busiest dispatch centers in the entire county. I will add again that we're
We're number 2.
And on top of that, we're the only dispatch center in the county that does police and fire. And we're the second lowest paid. We're $200 a month higher than the city of Pinole. Everybody else gets paid more than Richmond dispatchers.
Thank
Okay,
you.
if we could move then to,
Still working,
so
Jim.
He's not done.
Still,
He's not
thank
done.
you. I just want to make sure that this really is robust so we can get it passed. And I hope that, that shows. So the other is the dispatch upgrade technology. Do you already know what that technology is and how much it's going to cost?
I don't remember. I have to look back. I don't remember the cost, but I do remember the technology. So it was. I have to go back and look at my notes. I can get that to you. Give me 1 second.
I just want to be able to vote on this and have all the information in regards to the actual budget. The last part is move the bis. I think somebody else had a question similar around moving the dispatch to its own department. Do you have an idea of which department that will be under? Community services, its own department?
It would be its standalone department. It would be its standalone department with a standalone communications budget. And as I suggested earlier, if you want a chain of command, since the communication center already has a manager, that manager could report to one of the assistant city managers.
Perfect. I would love to see also that in the kind of like a chart, an org chart of what that new department might look like. And if there were other positions added to that, if this one manager is going to be able to manage 20 dispatchers with this increase, or if they're looking to hire more people because now they have an increase of dispatchers.
The current manager position used to manage 28 dispatchers. So I think that manager can handle 20.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm done.
Helen, did you want to add anything?
I'll be short because I know we're over time, but as I wanted to make sure I express my support for this, especially as a member of the subcommittee. I've seen the impact of the hiring and salary differentials in the realm of education within our county in a pretty drastic way over the last decade. And I'm excited about the possibility of making us a more competitive destination for well-trained dispatchers. I think it's essential, and I think it makes sense that where you want to build is closest to the point of impact and like initial impact with people. So I think this is a way of doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Gosney, did you want to make a comment?
Thank you. First, I will be abstaining on this only because I jumped in at the middle. I'm at school board meeting, as you can hear in the background. But one thing was brought up about cost sharing with El Cerrito. And if there is any kind of an increase in what it is going to cost, we're adding more personnel, for instance. You got to remember, El Cerrito is flirting with bankruptcy, big time. They may be taken over, lock the doors, padlock them. So I'm not sure where we're going to get the money. If we start increasing it, we may have to foot the bill ourselves. So that's something to keep in mind. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Is there a motion that that somebody want to put on the table? And if so, we will take public comments at that time.
Yeah, I'll make the motion that I made earlier with the slight modifications to the bullet points that are there.
Second that.
Yeah, so to clear, let's make sure it's clear so people,
Okay.
Yeah, so the first, can you repeat it, Joey, so everybody's clear, so we
Sure.
know?
So bullet point number 1 would be to direct the city to authorize and increase the allotment of dispatchers to a total of 20. And then under bullet point number 2, that the city be directed to emphasize and prioritize the hiring and filling of dispatch positions with an additional emphasis on bilingual applicants.
Okay. Can I make a friendly amendment to change the word on bullet point 4 to similar to training to the same as RPD?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second? Are there any other?
Yeah, I'll second it. Sorry, second it again.
Okay, I was going to say, okay, guys, we can. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Before we take a vote, I'd like to entertain any public comments that the public who is attending this meeting may want to make. Stephanie and Lope, do you see anybody who has raised their hand would like to make a public comment?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Let's give them another minute or so to allow if anybody wants to make a public comment. Okay, let's go forward and we'll do the roll call vote on the motion. Helen Burke.
Yes.
Marisol Cantu,
Yes.
Eddie Chacon,
Yes.
Luis Chacon,
Yes.
Don Gosney,
Abstain.
and DeWanda Joseph not here. Randy Joseph,
Yes.
Christine Killian Lobos.
Kristen, yes.
Kristen, thank you. James Lee not here. Armand Lee,
Thank you. Yes.
Laura Mangles,
Yes.
Jasong Marcos Chacon.
Are you talking about me?
Yeah,
Marcus and just saying.
Thank you, Deborah.
Is it just saying?
Marcus is fine. Marcus is fine.
And just saying.
Yes, very good, Deborah. Thank you.
Or have to give him a phonetic roll call list.
Hey, I've tried for a year now.
I appreciate your tolerance, Marcus.
No, it's all good. Just call me Marcus.
Joey Schlemmer,
Thank you, Deborah.
Yes.
Deborah Small,
Yes.
Andre Soto,
Aye.
Ben Terriot,
Yes.
David Tucker not here, Tamisha Walker,
Aye.
Linda Whitmore is not here, and BK Williams not here. The motion passes. Thank you. At this time, we are beyond the 7 o'clock limit. I think what you normally do is, let me just see what we have left on the agenda is really reports from the other subcommittees, and I don't know whether the group wants to spend time at that at this time. So we'd entertain a motion to extend the meeting or to adjourn it at this time.
How long do the committees expect their reports to last?
I'm not sure that anybody has, any committees have any reports that they wanted to make tonight? I think that the Accountability Task Force has made their presentations, right? So I don't think they have anything more to add. Budget Subcommittee, do you have anything you want to report tonight?
No, I move we adjourn.
Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn. Anybody else?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I think it was Marcus who was the seconder.
Mhm.
Any further comment? Do I have to take public comment on a motion to adjourn? Okay, if you want to raise your hand, please do so quickly. All right, we will now do the roll call on the motion to.
Randy has his hand up.
Just got there. Yes. Randy,
I
did
just
you want
wanna
to?
I just want to say thank you for listening to that part of our presentation and getting it passed, and just the importance of having dispatchers in the city, and hopefully we can work on other things moving forward. That's all I wanted to add.
Okay, Bruce, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, just ask if there are any objections to adjourning.
Thank you. Are there any objections to adjourning? The meeting stands adjourned. Thank you all so much for your participation tonight and your patience.
Thank you, Jim.